You are listening to the Caleb Turner Talk Show on the Anchor Radio Network. And now your host, Caleb Turner.
We are live May 11th, 2013, the Caleb Turner Talk Show on the Anchor Radio Network. It is a sad talk show broadcast as, well, the Vancouver Canucks are done. And it's probably the end of an era of pretty good dominance of the Vancouver Canucks within the Northwest Division. A couple of President's Trophies, a Stanley Cup Final appearance. But it's all over and done with. We'll talk about it a little bit. We got all the other series that we can talk about, and of course a little bit of NBA playoff action. And we might get into the Mariners and the Players Championship PGA big event this weekend. And Tiger Woods and Sergio Garcia right up there. But we'll get into that later on. The Caleb Turner Talk Show on the Anchor Radio Network rolls on after this.
Game 7, Detroit Red Wings and the Anaheim Ducks live from Anaheim, California can be heard right here on the Anchor Radio Network tomorrow night, 7 o'clock puck drop, live from Anaheim in the Honda Center. You are listening to the Caleb Turner Talk Show on the Anchor Radio Network. And now your host, Caleb Turner.
We're back live. 21st edition of the Caleb Turner Talk Show on the Anchor Radio Network. It is, like I said at the top of the hour, it's a disappointing talk show broadcast that we have to do on the show today. I'm wondering why Bob is playing like happy, speedy music. It should be like sad and music. The Vancouver Canucks season ended May 7th, Tuesday night, with a 4-3 loss in overtime in a sweeping fashion. Disappointing. Absolutely disappointing. Words cannot describe what it means as a Canucks fan to be swept out of the playoffs for the first time since 2002. Or is it 2000? Well, it's one of those years. 2000 or 2002. But the disappointment in this city, I suppose it wasn't as much as what it would have been if they would have made it to the second round or the third round and lost. Just didn't seem like playoff hockey here in Vancouver. I saw like 4 car flags in the time that I drove around, and I drove around quite a lot. I saw only 4 Canuck playoff car flags. That's it. The fan base here in Vancouver was disappointed 2 years ago in Game 7. And then last year we got all of our hopes up for, hey, we're going to have another run, another President's Trophy. We're going to get right back to the Stanley Cup Final when we lose in 5 games and can't win on home ice. This year, there wasn't as much hype. Okay, yeah, maybe they'll get to the second round. They should be able to get to the second round. At least they should. There's no excuse for getting swept, but coming into the series before even anything happened and any of the games happened, I mean, this city was dead to playoff hockey. To be honest, they were. I mean, I was pumped up. I was ready to go. I had my jersey out. I took my jersey to church a couple times and had the playoff beard going, at least the best that I can get. And for a second consecutive year, my playoff beard lasts a week and a half. There's no room for another first round exit. It's honestly embarrassing to me as a hockey fan in general. Okay, we're going to talk about the call that lost the game and how bad of a call it was. But either way, the Canucks don't win the series, but they probably win that game. Canucks did not deserve to lose Game 4. They didn't. They worked hard. They played hard. They honestly didn't deserve to lose Game 2, but they did. 2 games of the 4, they did deserve to win, but they didn't. So we're looking at 2-2 going back home for Game 5 on Thursday, and then we're gearing up for a Game 6 tonight At least we should be gearing up for a Game 6 tonight, but we aren't. Disappointment number 1. The Sedins did not play until Game 4. Now, I know that's not much of a surprise, seeing how their past history in the playoffs, they seem to turn into, they disappear. They turn into a disappearing act when they hit the playoffs. I mean, they weren't that good this year, but, they played average. I mean, we got an Art Ross Trophy winner, we got a Hart Memorial. Back-to-back Art Ross. We don't have a Hart Memorial. Back-to-back Art Ross. They played pretty good. And now it's dead. Daniel Sedin says it's the most frustrating team he's ever been on. He's only been on one team, but I suppose he means this season's team. And I think people took that out of context. I think what he was referring to was it's the most frustrating the team players have been. The most frustrating the players on the team have been in the time that Daniel Sedin's been with the Vancouver Canucks. I can definitely vouch for that. I mean, I'm sure losing Game 7 on home ice in the Stanley Cup Final was pretty disappointing, too. For that matter, losing Game 6 in Boston of the Stanley Cup Final was disappointing. And then when you lose Game 7 on home ice, then it's even more disappointing because you had 2 chances to win the Cup. And I know I keep bringing this up, but, man. Will we ever see a Stanley Cup in Vancouver? It may not be in this generation. For that matter, Vancouver may never win a Cup because, the things that have been going around in the world and world events, wars and rumors of wars, and just the sick-minded generation that we live in. Heard about the kidnappings there in Cleveland after 10 years and what happened there in those 10 years in that basement of that idiot's house. Whew. I mean, it's pretty freaky. So when you think about everything that's going on, it's probably not going to happen. I'm optimistic. I'm a very optimistic Canucks fan. I hung on for dear life in Game 4. And when Bieksa shoved Wingles into the board, or Irwin, or whatever his name was, and he flopped, and the referee called the penalty, it got really tense in our house. I haven't seen a referees control a series like I saw controlled in the Vancouver series against San Jose. And I know Montreal and Ottawa had the referee problems as well, and honestly, Montreal got jobbed. They lost in 5 games. Ottawa worked harder than Montreal, but Montreal got jobbed too. I honestly will say San Jose outworked Vancouver the majority in the series. But in the 2 games that the Canucks deserved to win, San Jose disappeared in periods. Like the second period and the third period. The second period in Game 4, Vancouver took over. And obviously the first part of the third period, they took over. In the second period of the second game, Vancouver was all over them. Even in the third period, they were too. San Jose obviously came on, and then Rafi Torres scored in overtime. But, I mean, to be honest, San Jose deserved to win the series. I can understand that. I have no problem with saying that. But, Canucks deserved to win Game 2 and Game 4. They got jobbed in Game 4, and they just looked ugly in Game 2 in overtime. Alex Edler and the Sedins go over to play for Team Sweden in the AAHF World Championships. Nicholas Jensen goes to play for Denmark. It's funny. Nicholas Jensen did not even play for the Canucks this year, but they brought him up in the playoffs from the farm team in Chicago. And because he is a pretty good player from Denmark, well, they asked him to come over and join, and, well, he'll do it. I mean, he didn't get much hockey this year in a national level, so he'll go play over there for Denmark. But I'd like to talk about Alex Edler for a minute. I think he's a good defenseman, but there's times where he looks like the worst defenseman on the ice. There was a caller who, towards the end of the season, just before the Chicago game, called in and said it's been a while since he's seen the boards rattle and the glass rattle at Rogers Arena. And then in that game against Chicago, the boards rattled and the glass rattled. But that happened one game. One game that happened. That was it. Nothing else big happened in those last two games of the regular season at Anaheim and Edmonton. We lost both those games. And then they start the playoffs and they honestly went back into the slow, methodical Vancouver Canucks team that we grew accustomed to this year. The power play could not finish for some reason. The Sedins were not who they were 3 years ago, 2 years ago for that matter in the regular season. And we didn't really get to see that much in the playoffs as well. I know it was only 4 games, but they were not there. The defense, yeah, they did okay, but, I mean, like I'm talking about, Alex Edler. 3 years ago, he was one of the best defensemen in the league, and 2 years ago, just 2 years ago, I know he stunk in the first round of the playoffs last year, but just 2 years ago, at the start of the season, they were talking Norris Trophy candidate. I know it was only at the beginning of the season, but to even be talked about in the Norris Trophy candidate is big, especially when Shea Weber, Ryan Suter, Dion Phaneuf, and at that time Nicholas Lidstrom were on the board. PK Subban as well, if we're going to get technical, and of course Erik Karlsson as well. But where's Alex Edler gone? Mason Raymond lost weight. They need to go fatten him up on the offseason. That's if he's going to be here. Keith Ballard was in the Alain Vigneault doghouse for the last year and a half, 2 years, and potentially for all the years that he's been here, but he's one of the better Vancouver Canuck defensemen. I mean, I know he's in the doghouse of the coach, but there's got to be a time where you set aside your personal differences and maybe even sometimes your political differences and focus on what's best for the team. Was starting Corey Schneider in Game 3 the right decision for the Vancouver Canucks? I know my opinion doesn't really count, but it wasn't the right decision. Okay, we can make the argument that if Luongo has a bad game, then the coach has got major pressure. But Corey Schneider hadn't played a game since Chicago. So, you need no action for the last 2.5 weeks. Week and a day. So, for me, looking at it, I say Luongo has the game experience for the last week and a couple of days. Corey Schneider hasn't played much at all. And Luongo's played pretty good in the first 2 games against San Jose. Yeah, he had a couple of bad bounces, but he honestly was the better player for the Vancouver Canucks. In fact, he was probably the best player on the ice for the Canucks in the series overall. And he he played the 2 games and he played a little bit in the third game. He played the third period. So, I know Vigneault was in a tough decision there, but again, we point the fingers at the coach. And I'm going to preface this by saying, I respect Alain Vigneault. In fact, I think he's been the best coach in the last 9 years that hasn't won the cup. He is. He's been the best coach in the league in the last 9 years that hasn't won the cup. And he honestly got deprived of a cup, Game 7, Stanley Cup Finals, when the players just honestly disappeared. And I'm ashamed to say that, he's going to take the brunt of this attack because he's the leader. He made a pretty bad decision at the beginning of the year to flip-flop with the goalies and Schneider and Luongo. He should have decided right at the beginning of the year who was going to be number 1. But he didn't. And that's why in the playoffs there was a lot of backlash as to why, Schneider wasn't starting Game 2. So there was a lot of pressure on the coach to start Schneider in Game 3. When maybe He wanted to really start Luongo. And after Game 4, everybody was saying, trade Schneider, keep Luongo. Please. Bandwagon fans. Vancouver and Toronto have a lot of them. The Toronto fans have been put through a lot, but Vancouver has a lot of bandwagon fans. Been a Canucks fan for 9 years. I know it's not very long, but it's only been like 2 or 3 times that I've actually cried after a game. It wasn't necessarily because the Canucks lost Game 4 is the reason why I cried. It would have been more because that's it. This era of the Vancouver Canucks is done. There's going to be significant changes made in the offseason. I know Gillis said that. I'm going to wait until I see those changes. But hearing Vigneault's post-game press conference after Game 4 caused me to get a little teary-eyed. Because this guy has honestly made every player on this team better than what they were. And for some of them, better than what they ever would have thought they could have been. He's built a really good team. A dynasty, even though they haven't won a championship, a good dynasty. They had the league's best power play, the league's best penalty kill at several points in these 9 years. 6 division titles, a playoff appearance 7 of 9 years. Back-to-back first-round exits. Not going to look too good on the resume, but Stanley Cup final appearance. Western Conference championship. Pretty much every year, second-round appearance. So, he's done. There's no way he's coming back. I can't see him coming back after what has happened this year. And a lot of people thought he should have been gone last year, after losing Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, and then laying an egg in losing 4-1, losing all 3 games on home ice. That was another pointer that, hey, maybe this guy should go, and then this year losing in the first round 4-0. The Canucks dynasty is probably over. I think the Sedins, Kessler, Burrows, Hamhuis, Higgins, Bieksa, they're probably all going to be here next year. And, of course, Garrison. Tanev will probably still be here. I would think Lapierre probably stays here. Other than that, I don't know. Any other player is honestly up for grabs in my eyes. But I hope they keep the Sedins, even though they haven't really done very well in the playoffs. They're honestly the face of this team. They are. They're the face of this team. Ryan Kessler is the face of this team. Alex Burrows has a small face on this team. And I know he hasn't done much, but Chris Higgins is a very, very good player. He is. He's smart with the puck. He can kill penalties. So, I don't think Derek Roy's going anywhere. Because I honestly thought he played really good. He did. So, Sedins, Kessler, Burrows, Higgins, Roy. You got 6 players right there that I think aren't going anywhere. Probably Jannik Hansen as well. So there's 7 forwards that probably aren't going anywhere. On the defense, probably Hamhuis, Bieksa, Garrison, probably Tanev will still be here. Edler's a toss-up, because I don't really know what the scoop is there. If Edler stays, then you got 5 of the 7 or 8 defensemen that played here this year still on the team. Frankie Corrado as well. But, I don't know. I mean, some of those forwards could be going bye-bye. Who knows? You got 12 forward spots. And I would say right now 6 are guaranteed to be coming back next year. And that's the Sedins, Kessler, Burrows, Higgins, and Roy. I would say are for sure coming back next season. For the goaltending situation, Luongo and Schneider, I don't really know what's going to happen. There was a guy who said, is there a possibility that Luongo and Schneider could both be gone next year? Wouldn't that be a joke? I mean, that would be a slap in the face to Canuck fans here. Who could they pick up, though? I mean, if they got rid of Luongo and Schneider, who could potentially be the number one goalie for the Vancouver Canucks next year? I just don't see both of them going. Again, I'm leaning more towards the fact that Luongo's going to be gone next year and Schneider is going to be the number one goalie, period. End of sentence. I like Luongo. I've always respected him for who he has been. He didn't play very well against Chicago, though, in those two years that we played them. The first 2 years, and then the third one obviously won. But he's got a gold medal, and he's been to the Stanley Cup Final Game 7. Jennings winner with Schneider, and of course, Vezina nomination. I think he won a Vezina trophy, right? He's the best goalie in Canucks history, as well as Alain Vigneault being the best coach in Canucks history. So, what more is there to say? This is honestly the best players in Canuck history are on this team. The best coaching staffs are on this team. I don't know about the best GM. I think Mike Gillis is to blame for some of this. I wouldn't necessarily. Everybody's going to be blamed for something. The ownership could be blamed for something, to be honest. But general manager definitely is going to get a lot of my blame. And I throw a good portion of the blame on Mike Gillis. So, best coach all time in Canucks history, Alain Vigneault. Best players, Henrik and Daniel Sedin in Canucks history. Best goalie, Roberto Luongo in Canucks history. Not going to say best defenseman yet in Canucks history. There are a couple guys that could potentially get nominations for that. Edler, BX, Hamhuis, I know I'm saying Edler, regular season best defenseman, and honestly, he hasn't played very well the last couple years, so I don't know. If BX stays here for the next little while, he probably will end up becoming the best defenseman in Canucks history, and be remembered for scoring one of the most memorable goals in Canucks history there in Game 5 against San Jose 2 years ago to get him to the Cup. Burroughs probably has the biggest goal in Canucks history, slaying the Dragon, and then Kevin BX is probably number 2 with that big goal to send him to the Cup. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the NHL and some of the series going on. This is the 21st edition of the Caleb Turner Talk Show on the Anchor Radio Network. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
The Anchor Radio Network is proud to present its 20th edition anniversary t-shirts. They are available on the website for purchase, $9.99 plus shipping, handling, and tax. So pick those up on the anchorandmerc.ca.
We're back live. Last segment of the broadcast today. Caleb Turner Talk Show, May 11th, 2013. Wrapping up with the rest of the NHL, a little NBA. The Pittsburgh Penguins are the... what are they? The third team to advance? Fourth team to advance. Fifth team. Just keep increasing it there. Or is it fourth? It is fourth, right? Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth team to an advance with a 4-3 win in overtime. Brooks Orpik with his first ever career NHL playoff goal. And it breaks the heart and back of the New York Islander fans, who were incredible. In my eyes, the best fans so far in the playoffs. But that's just my opinion. I don't really have much of a say. This whole entire thing's about... The show is all about my opinion. So the Detroit Red Wings and the Anaheim Ducks will go to a Game 7 tomorrow night at the Honda Center. You can hear that game right here live on the Anchor Radio Network. The Chicago Blackhawks beat the Minnesota Wild 4-1 in the series. And honestly, manhandled them. Minnesota was able to win that one game in Game 3 for their fans to celebrate there with the overtime goal. That place went nuts. Give Minnesota credit. Give the Minnesota fans credit for that one game in which they were able to celebrate. Hands down, wildly. The Ottawa Senators beat the Montreal Canadiens 4-1, and I think until the Senators play a non-Canadian team, we'll know just how crazy the Ottawa Senator fans are, because there was a lot of Montreal Canadian fans in the crowd with Ottawa, and there was a bunch of Ottawa fans in the crowd with Montreal. So, Ottawa plays Pittsburgh next. That's already been guaranteed. So, it's going to be crazy. It is going to be crazy at the Scotiabank Place. And obviously it's going to be crazy at the Mellon Arena anyways, but either way. The Los Angeles Kings beat the St. Louis Blues 4-2 in their series. And St. Louis started out pretty good with their first 2 games, but just couldn't finish like the Canucks. Only St. Louis did win a couple games, but really honestly didn't entirely deserve those 2 games. But that's just my opinion. Washington Capitals, New York Rangers, Game 6 tomorrow at MSG, and the Caps can finish the series with a win. The Toronto Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins are back in Toronto. Game 6 as well tomorrow. Toronto has to win to force a Game 7 back at the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. The Memphis Grizzlies beat the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight in Memphis, Tennessee. And Memphis takes a 2-1 series lead. I'm telling you, it is very unfortunate that Russell Westbrook got hurt. Because to be honest, the Oklahoma City Thunder are probably not going to get past Memphis. They probably won't. The Indiana Pacers, did they go on to beat the Knicks? I think they did. So the Pacers are up 2-1 in their series. And tomorrow you've got Heat Bulls Game 4, Spurs Warriors Game 4. Couple of really, really good games. I'm sure they will be must-watch. Oh, wait, the Pacers and the Knicks are on tomorrow, correct? Is it back-to-back games? I think they're back-to-back games. I know there was one series that was back-to-back games, but we'll have to confirm that one maybe. Vancouver Whitecaps with a big win over the LA Galaxy, 3-1 today. Telling you, Tiber is looking good. Tiber's looking good. GL Rio Coker's looking fantastic, and you got to see Darren Maddox get a goal tonight. Joe Cannon was pretty good, and the fans were superb there at BC Place. Another big soccer note, Wigan Atletico upset Manchester City there at the FA Cup at the Wembley Stadium. Huge upset. They're saying it's the biggest upset all time. Man City's got a payroll of like, what, 625 million? And Wigan's got like a payroll of 64 million. Huge, huge upset. Major upset. And probably the biggest one in soccer history. Tiger Woods has 4 holes left, so does Sergio Garcia in their third round tomorrow. And then they'll begin the 4th round. But Tiger and Sergio tied at 10 under par. The person that they are chasing is it Stensis? Not sure who they're chasing. And Lambert, right? Lambert? Something like Lambler, something like that. They're 2 back of him. He's starting his 4th round tomorrow, but Garcia and Woods will have to finish the last 4 holes of their 3rd round, and then Tiger will try to win the Players at TPC tomorrow. They're in the 4th round, and I have a feeling he's going to have a pretty good finish there to his tournament here at the Players. And I think we're going to see a W for Tiger Woods. Once again, the story of the week, the Vancouver Canucks get swept by the San Jose Sharks in 4 games. Lose both the games on home ice. Last year they lost all 3. They have not won a home playoff game since Game 5 against the Boston Bruins in the 2011 Stanley Cup Final. Haven't won a playoff game since Game 4 against the Los Angeles Kings last playoff. So they're 0-5 in their last playoff game, and they're 0-5 in their last 5 playoff games. And many, many questions are going to be answered in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure next week we are going to have a lot to talk about as to whether there have been changes made, coaches fired, general managers fired, players cut. It's going to be an interesting week here in Vancouver. And, of course, it's going to be an interesting week in the sports world as the second round of the playoffs will be beginning Wednesday, something like that. Still have a couple series to finish up, but it's going to be good. It's going to be a finish, and of course the NBA semifinals are going on. You've got the Oklahoma City Thunder, Memphis Grizzlies, the San Antonio Spurs, Golden State Warriors, Miami Heat, Chicago Bulls, which, by the way, that series is heating up as there was a the past couple games, there's been several technical fouls handed out. And Nazar Muhammad got ejected for shoving LeBron James to the court, which, by the way, was a flop. And Tom Thibodeau thought it was a flop. I thought it was a flop, too. I mean, he definitely shoved him, and I think he deserved a suspension or a ejection, but LeBron deserved another technical foul for flopping. I mean, please. Academy Award winner right there, LeBron James. But what do you expect? He was just named the MVP, and he's going to get that star treatment from the referees. The big fundamental, old fundamental, one fundamental, San Antonio Spurs took a huge game from the Golden State Warriors. They're in the yellow out. They're in Golden State, Oakland, and I think that might be a huge turn in that series. Not sure. Seth Curry and Thompson fell asleep in that game, so I think it's just going to take a couple more games for them to officially, Klay Thompson, it's going to take a couple more games for them to officially get warmed. But that does it for us. The Caleb Turner Talk Show, Anchor Radio Network, May 11, 2013 edition. Highlights of the week for me. Today, the Vancouver Whitecaps beating the Los Angeles Galaxy 3-1 here at BC Place Stadium. That's got to be one of the highlights. Another highlight, maybe that the Leafs have survived to a Game 6. That we have the Ottawa Senators moving on. That's as of now, the only Canadian team in. Another highlight. There isn't really much more on my highlight list from the last week in the sports world. But enjoy tomorrow, Mother's Day. And make sure you got yourselves your gifts out and take your mom out to dinner or cook her dinner as long as it's appropriate dinner. Let's not, prepare any burnt food or anything like that. But that wraps it up for us, May 11, 2013. Stay safe, enjoy the weekend. A lot of sporting events on the weekend, and we have a couple of them right here in the Anchor Network, so keep it locked right here, 24/7, 52 weeks, a year, 365 days. The Anchor Radio Network.
You have been listening to a presentation of the Caleb Turner Talk Show on the Anchor Radio Network. Tune in every week for a new Caleb Turner Talk Show on the Anchor Radio Network.